So most of you are front-end developers, right? Because of WIT. So do you know about web components? Yeah. How many of you have created a web component from scratch? No one. Whoa, no front-end developer. One. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Most of us has never do that. So let's go to a presentation I have here. I will try to do everything very fast. And let's see. So let's introduce a little bit the web components, because everyone here are speaking about the web component, but actually we don't know so much about what's the nature of the web component. So, sorry, this is not the appropriate. Okay, so what are web components? Well, basically it's a new tag. It's a new tag that you are to add to your UI, to your browser, and everything should work, right? So with web components we don't need plugins in the browser. It's easy to share, framework agnostic. I mean, all the frameworks can create a new element and put there, and based on the specification, it should work, right? So there are web components like this, Vaadin Grid, which is a complex web component, but you can also have web components like this, Vaadin PouchDB, or maybe Iron Ajax, or whatever, that are web components that have some functionality to your application, but not necessarily is a UI component. So the main characteristics of the web component is that the isolation. So web component developer or creator can guarantee that his web component is going to be the same always in any context, right? Right now, if you change the background or the body background of your application, maybe all the components inside thank you, in your UI can suffer. But with the Shadow DOM, it guarantees that your web component is isolated. So, thank you to this isolation, you can encapsulate. So you can hide all your implementation in your web component or UI component or whatever do your web component, and offer a reduced API to the world, right? But also you can take more web component and do composition with them and encapsulate everything in a bigger web component. And one of the main keys in web component is sharing. So there are many websites where you can take your web component. So before we have said that in Vaadin there are maybe 600 add-ons, which almost are not web components, but UI components, or maybe some add-ons for the server side or whatever, but they are only 600, right? But then if you look for web components in GitHub, for instance, you have thousands of them. So basically the DOM is the framework when you do a web component, or you do some application with using web components, because the HTML is the component model. HTML is a powerful declarative language itself, so you don't need anything else. And the data flow is simply handled by attributes, which are well known for every front-end developers or even designer, properties and events, right? So that is everything that you need to know about web components. So web components are basically missing pieces of the HTML implementation. So let's go to the code, and I have here a folder. So because of the internet, I have already downloaded the Bower component that I am going to use. Also, instead of doing an external, I just call, I have here some users JSON, so I'm not lying. And okay, so I need an IDE, so I open Atom. Who knows Atom? Yeah, it's I prefer VI, but yeah, nowadays if you code in VI, probably someone is going to say something. So a new file, and I'm going to create the web component demo. Oh, it's not rename web components HTML. Okay, so with Atom I have some templates. So for instance, I can write HTML and I want to create a new web component. Okay, so for creating a web component from scratch, you need all this stuff. So my web component is my web component. Okay, so basically what I am doing here is using my web component. So it's a new tag. So it's a custom tag that I add to the browser. But in order to make it work, I have to do something like register the web component, and I need a prototype. So each time that the browser is going to render this web component, it needs some information which is in the prototype, in the JavaScript prototype. So to create the JavaScript prototype, you only have to do something like this: is inherit from the HTML prototype. And then, well, I am modifying here the prototype. So I add a full property to the prototype with a getter and a setter. So it's going to do nothing right now, but we are going to. So also you have the most important part, which is the the create callback, where you do something with the component. So here you can make an Ajax request if you are a component that make Ajax request, but if you are going to do something in the DOM, this is the time for doing. So I'm going to create a new shadow. So I can use the shadow in my web component or not. If I create a new shadow, I am going to be isolate. Everything that I write in the shadow is shown in the UI, but you cannot access easily from the context, right? So shadow inner HTML, something like I want h3 hello, and this should work, I guess. So if I go here, yeah. So yeah, I have to start a server, so I can, for instance, run Jetty server here, or I prefer serve, which is a lightweight server made with in JavaScript in Node. So if I reload here this is the port. So I have my web component and something is not working. So shadow inner HTML is not a function. Create shadow. What is wrong? Okay, what's the wrong here? Shadow, create shadow. No, it's okay. In HTML. Yeah, I was calling inner HTML as a function, but actually it's a property, so I have to do something like this. I think I was doing something. Yeah. Okay, so I have two instances of my web component, right? I want to do something like this.span equals create element and create a span. And then I can do something like shadow.query selector and look for this and open shadow this.span. Okay, so what I have is hello, and I want to write something in the span. So what I am going to do is to get to reuse this, and I want a property which is who, and when the property is set, I do something like this span dot text content equals v, which is the parameter that I get here. Let's see. Yeah, it should work. So if I go to elements and do something like, let me see. Well, I can do here. So what I can do here is this dot who equals all, and yeah, it works, right? But what I want to do with my web component is who equals Manolo. Okay, how do this? Well, the idea is that instead of wall, this dot get attribute who. Yeah, it works. But also I want the API of my web component, for instance, that I can set here Jose, and it should work. But so the thing is that if the attribute doesn't exist, for instance, this dot inner text content, and it works. So here I have my component, but the thing is that if I inspect its component, you know that I can write $0 and who is undefined, even though that I have defined. So you have to do something like when you set this dot who or whatever equals a v and return this dot who. Okay, and now if I go here and yeah, it is. Also I can set here Susana, it's my wife, yeah, and it changes, you know, so everything works. So the thing is that this is okay, but it's very verbose, isn't it? So to create a new element. So this is the reason why we use a library which is called Polymer, right? So Polymer is just, who knows Polymer here? Okay, Polymer is a library developed in Google, and actually Polymer team is almost Chrome team, so they share the people, and they are working in the specification of web components. So Google is very interested in the specification, and Polymer, the first thing that they did was polyfill, so a web component works everywhere. Well, Polymer is a library, it's not a framework. There are people developing applications just using Polymer, but it's not a framework. Actually, it's just a library, and this library facilitates create new web components easier, right? And it enables reusing, sharing, etc. It is a stable API. Sorry, it is reliable, and it provides a polyfill as well. For only Chrome is full support in the web component, but if you install the polyfill, other browsers, green browsers do. And it's very well documented, and it's ready platform, and also they have many tools, they have many elements that you can reuse, etc. So Polymer is as easier as web components. So for instance, in this example, we have an input echo web component. So this web component does this. So actually, the web component, yeah, all the only offers one API to you, which is the source name. But how is this code? So when you define a new element or web component in Polymer, you have to define a new module. You have to give an ID, right? And then you have a template, and inside the template you put everything that you want to render, right? Then they have a couple of things that you have to memorize. Is the double curly, curly bracket and square bracket. So only thing that if you put the curly bracket means that double binding, and the square means only one direction. Okay, and that's all. Also, you can call some functions, and also you can bind to when the input is native, when the element is native instead of Polymer. But it's not so complex to understand. And then you need a piece of JavaScript where you register the element. So when you put the is attribute, means that you are registering the element, and then you can put some properties of functions or whatever. Actually, you can do this JavaScript in with. So you can define your module in HTML and then add the JavaScript from TypeScript, with, etc. So let's see the same example, but in new file in Polymer, polymer.html. So you can see that it simplifies a lot. So what I am doing HTML, I have a new HTML file, and I have this here, which means that I want the polyfill, so it's going to work everywhere, but I can remove it right now because I am using Chrome, so it works. And then my web component is my example, for instance, and it should work, right? So if I go to the here and go to the index, I have the Polymer, and it works. What happens? I don't have anything in my custom tag. I have to do something with it. So in Polymer, normally when you define a new web component, you create a new file. My example, it could have the same name or not, and then you create a new, I have a template here, new index module Polymer. I need an index, yeah, that's okay. So I create here my example. I define here my example, and then here I put something like hello in H3. Oh. Okay. And it should work, but I need to do something additional. I need to import my component. So this is something in the specification of the web components. Is the import or HTML import is something that Chrome has, but there are some browsers vendors that they say that they are not going to support this syntax, so it will. But if I reload, it doesn't work. Why? Basically, okay. Basically because let me go back, because I am using. I need the polyfill because of another thing. I am okay. So here. Import my element and use my element, my example. So here I have an error because Polymer is not imported. So if I create a new Polymer element, obviously I need to import Polymer. And it works and say hello. Okay, so but also I want a span here, like in my last example, saying something like Manolo. This obviously works, but I want this to be a property. So is who. I want that polymer, this is the syntax to write something here which comes from here. So polymer has properties. Yeah, I have this property which is a string. Okay, this is very easy one. So if I reload, I don't have Manolo there, but if I go to my example, the only thing that I have to do is who is equal Manolo. Okay, so everything works, and also I have my example here. I can say something like $0 who equals Jose, and it works, right? But also I wanted to do something like I did, which is I want to use the content in my tag is Susana, and I want it working. So the only thing that you have is to get the content here in the declarative language. So here I can put something like content. This is something that is going to change as well in the specification, but right now you have to use content. It's not a polymer, so it works. But what to do when I don't have any content? I can put here again who. So the default implementation, if I don't have any content, is this one that I have here. Okay, and yeah, I have many things here like. Yeah, if you wanted in the other example, for instance, reflect to attribute, I am not going to save. So as if I do again, I have this, I have the who, and I change. Jose is here because the property is set, but who is has not changed in the here. Okay, but I can do something like this, reflect to attribute. So when I reload, I change, and also the attribute changes. Okay, so for instance, I can do something like let me go to the also polymer allows you to set some styles in your code, and for instance, you can put here my span, and I want the background yellow. It's a good color, I guess. Yeah, it works. Also, I can put some border top red, 6 pixels solid red. Oh, Spanish flag. Oh, we can also use the Italy flag. Something like, left is maybe 20 pixels green, isn't it? And right 20 pixels red. What happens? Oh, 20 pixels. Yeah, it's a mixture, but we can make this work. For instance, we can do something like if the host, which is my component, has the language attribute equals to ES. Actually, in this, show this, and otherwise, yeah, I am going to copy and paste. If you have the attribute Italy, let's see if it works. Obviously, it doesn't work because I have to. This is my new API, so I length equal Spanish, and Susana is Italian. It doesn't work. Something is wrong. Okay, where is my example host language? Okay, yeah, I don't know so much about CSS. Developer not designer. So this is the syntax for the selector probably. Yeah, it works. Nice. Let's continue. So why I have talked about web components and why Vaadin has some motivations. So Vaadin is a framework statically typed in Java in the JVM. It has a automated communication with the server side, and we have client-side components. That's all that you should know about the Vaadin. Vaadin actually is the third most used framework in Java. So it's Spring, JSF, because many people uses Spring and JS. And also there is Vaadin and GUID. You should code more in GUID. And yeah, the thing is that the traditional development of UI components is very verbose. So you know, in GUID, something like create element, element dot styles dot whatever equals, I don't know. So it's, and also when you develop something for jQuery, only can be used in jQuery. If you use something with Materialize, which is a new framework with material design, which is used by GUID material, you only can use that with Materialize, and GUID material only can work in GUID, and also it depends on Materialize and jQuery, and yeah, it's difficult to share. But Vaadin said, why don't replace our components with web components, with the standard specification. If we do that, we are going to follow standard specifications. We have a declarative language, as we have seen. Also, we are framework agnostic, so our web components are going to work everywhere, and they are multi-device, production ready, active development. Google is behind the web components, and Vaadin is collaborating a lot with the Polymer element. There is a huge community, etc., etc. So everything, I think, is good. So Vaadin has developed already some elements. So we have Vaadin core elements is Apache 2 license, so you can use, and they are almost for business applications. So Vaadin is focused on enterprise applications, so almost applications that move the world. It's not in the web, actually, it's in the companies. And also we have Vaadin Charge, which has a commercial license. Okay. So play with Vaadin Elements. How is the hour? Okay, we have still some minutes left. And let's play with the Vaadin Elements. So I am going to create Vaadin.html, so as you are familiar with them. So let me create a new HTML Polymer element. Sorry, this is an HTML normal, and I am going to create an HTML module Polymer. Okay, this is. I'm going to HTML and then again, and this is going to be my application. So this is not a web component. Actually, it's a web component, but I want to create a new application. So how do I use my application? Well, it's like any other component, right? So I can write here that I want to use my application, and it should work. It should work. So in my application, I want something like Vaadin Grid, so as you can know it. And Vaadin Grid has an API where you have to provide some items to display them. So also you have here, you need items that you have a property which is name. Okay? So I'm going to provide here an array. So Polymer allows to do this. So sorry, I need an object. It's an array of objects. So Polymer is going to parse this part, and name equals, and name equals, and yeah, let's go to the application, reload, and I have the Vaadin. Okay, Polymer is not defined, obviously, because I have not imported Polymer. So let's import Polymer. Actually, I don't need this if I import. And also, I forgot to import the Vaadin grid, right? So let's go with Vaadin grid. Yeah, it works. So Vaadin grid is amazing web component. Also, you have Vaadin grid in GUID, because actually Vaadin grid is written in GUID for the Vaadin framework, and we exported it using JS interop, and it's wrapped in the. Actually, if you go here, network, and we see everything, we have something that is Vaadin grid minimized. And if we take a look to or open in the link in new tab, yeah, this is GUID code. Yeah, you have a lot of GUID words over here. So Vaadin grid is made with GUID. So let's continue with my example, showing some more cool elements here. Where is that? Where we were? Okay, so I have the Vaadin grid here, but yeah, this is boring, because actually I want, instead of provide an array here directly, I want to provide something like users, right? How do you get users in your applications? You have to use some libraries, or maybe some Ajax request is I don't know. In GUID there are many auto binders. Yeah. Well, you have many many components that they only do some work in the background. For instance, Iron Ajax is a very nice component, because you provide the URL here is users JSON. It's here users.json. And then what I can do here is instead of this is calling method when you have, this is another syntax in Polymer. So on response means that it's going to listen to the response event and then execute this this handler, which is a function that you can add here. But instead of this, I am going to use the last response, which is a property in the object, and assign this. I have to use here the curly bracket in order to do so as the component modifies the variable in the and should work, I guess. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, it works almost. So I don't see here the where is yeah. So there is no request. Why? Nice. Yeah. You are not. So basically, it's because we need to do Iron Ajax. Okay, and it works. We have here, and we don't have anything here. Actually, the grid knows the size of the but we are not using the same properties in the object. So what we can do here is analyze the response. If we go to my application and see the Iron Ajax, we can inspect the object. Last response is here. Yeah, it is. Yeah, you have a set of objects. You can inspect the first one, for instance, and you have address, email, first name, last name. In address also we have country, zip. So I'm going to use some of them. I go to my, so as you can see, Vaadin grid is configured It can be configured using some methods, but it uses the light DOM. This part of the DOM, which is called content in the Vaadin grid, is used only for configuring it. Actually, it's not shown in your DOM. It's hidden. But yeah, I'm going to put more columns. I think, yeah, 3. And instead of name, it was first name. I think there was an email. And also there was something like address dot country. Yeah, we have. So let's make better so let's show another component from Vaadin. Vaadin split layout. So a split layout is a splitter. So you have vertical splitter, which here we have only 2 areas, but we can. So I'm going to move my grid from here to one of the divs. Yeah, and yeah, also I have to import. Yeah, Vaadin. What's the name? Split layout. Yeah, I have worked for 1 month in this component and don't remember the name. Yeah. Okay. And now let's put something here like Vaadin. No. For instance, paper input, which is very popular. Paper input should be, yeah. And the label is name. Is out of the div, yeah. So let's, and the value, I can bind the value with my grid. Well, my grid is a collection, so I need an element. I'm going to use the user 0, so the first row of my user 0, and it was first name, I guess. Let's see. Oh, I have to import. You have to import once in your application. Once. So if you do that, for instance, paper input, if you import more than once, the framework is going, well, the framework actually is the specification, the browser is going to use only one. So that doesn't do anything the second time. So if we do, yeah, user, something. What happens here? We have to, yeah, to put some syntax. It doesn't work. Users. Yeah, it's JavaScript and HTML. It's not safe. That's the. Yeah, I don't like JavaScript actually. But yeah, for UI is perfect. So let's do something else. So also we have something called Vaadin Date Picker, which is cool. So I want to say something like users 0 birthday. And also import it. I love some of the feature of Atom, like multiple cursors. You know, something like this. I don't use never the. Oh, let me see. Yeah. No, yeah. Something like this. Go to the end and it's multi-cursors. Okay, so let's. Yeah, and so I have here the Vaadin. Date picker, which is very nice. You can go here. Ooh. Yeah. So if I select a date, there is no date here because I don't have this field. So I need to declare here. Reload. Why not? Yeah. Let me select something. It doesn't work. Birthday. Something is birthday. Yeah. It's a syntax. I'm not good at English, as you can appreciate. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it works. And finally, another component that we have is just to finish. You want to go to home. Vaadin combo box is nice as well. So items, I can say something like Italy, Spain. The value is, it was users dot address dot country, and the label could be country. Yeah, and reload here. Yeah, yeah. We need to import, obviously. HG Vaadin combo box, and it should work almost, but it doesn't work because I need here the 0 because we are bounding to the first row, I guess. Yeah, so you have use USA here. You can move this user to Italy. Okay, so this is everything I had to. In my presentation, there are a couple of slides. One is this, which says something like Vaadin is working in tooling. So we have Polymer Themer working on, so we can replace material design by other. Also, we have Angular to Polymer bridge. Also, as I said yesterday, you have with Polymer Elements, and also there is a with Polymer API generator right now, but in the future we are going to use the same approach that Google are doing for the Elemental 2. And Vaadin Polymer Components is something internal for the new framework that we are developing based on. And I think that's everything. Okay, thank you very much.